we'll talk about the range of colors here, and I expect quite a bit with what we share this evening as far as Rubina, as far as the range of colors. So I've got a piece here. This is a pulled stem, narrow optic, small 2.5 ounce wine in Rubina. And I would think most of you say, now that's pretty neat color, huh? The range of color, you've got the red on top going into green, some blue in the bowl and blue in the stem. So you got that neat range of color. It does seem like and it applies also to the Sunset, that these thinner blown pieces, it must have been somewhat easier for them to get that range of color consistently than it was in some of the pressed items that were thicker as far as the thickness of glass. And it's really a problem for a manufacturer of any commodity if you can't get uniformity. So another relatively short-term color for Cambridge was Windsor blue. That was 1937, 1938. And, cobalt was actually tricky because it was such a powerful colorant to get it uniform from batch to batch. So that might have been a problem for Windsor blue. Also, Crown Tuscan, we've talked about before. Boy, those first 2-3 years, they struggled to get a uniform color of Crown Tuscan. And, letters went out after they'd sold the glass to send it back if they weren't happy with it, because it wasn't a uniform color. Now, they were able to iron out those problems, the Cambridge factory, and thank goodness they were, because Crown Tuscan was one of their best sellers ever. And, I tend to think the problem in the early years, there was quite a bit of iron in the sand, and they need to work out that problem. So we are aware that Rubina was a problem for the sellers to sell. And, if it wasn't uniform in color, that probably was a problem for them. Also, we don't have any prices that I'm aware of on what Rubina sold for, how much it cost them to make it and what they sold for. But we do know for Sunset, and we do know for Carmen. These are all three colors that need to be refired. They take more work in the factory. And Sunset was priced 15% higher than the other transparent colors at that time, and that was in the 1950s. And likewise, Carmen had a price tag about 50% higher. So for Rubina, a color a lot of us like, it was a difficult one for Cambridge because it was probably more expensive to the consuming public. And, money was, tough back in 1925 between the two world wars. And it was difficult for them to make a uniform color. Now, as far as the color, so I do happen to like the full range of color in Rubina. I'm a little bit of a snob. I prefer this. I also prefer Crown Tuscan that's slaggy, that, uneven stuff from the early years is my preference. So I'm sure there's Rubina collectors that prefer Rubina that doesn't have a lot of blue, or maybe is almost solid red. It's always what you like yourself and what you like having in your collection. Again, this reheating process, and Larry Everett's here on the program today. Larry's uncovered some turn cards, and I think between those of us that get all wrapped up in the details, minutia of research, we are pretty sure now that Carmen needed to be reheated. In the Helmer's batch book, the notations on Carmen that it needs to be warmed in. There's comments about the glory hole, but we really don't know what process they used, or I'm not aware if anybody knows for sure what process was used for the reheating. Did they actually put it back in the glory hole piece by piece, or was there some type of tray? How long was it reheated? I don't think we know that. There's so many questions now that I wish I would have asked both Russ Vogelsong and Harold Bennett. I was a pest to poor Harold Bennett. Was constantly asking questions about the manufacturing of glass as a new collector, but I didn't follow up on that very well. So unless somebody else knows something in the group here, I don't think we have a very good clue on how they did the reheating. But in the textbooks that I have on making glass, it was not easy to get the temperature and the timing right on the reheating. It was tricky business. And my primary reference book says it was much more of an art than a science to get the timing and everything just right on that reheating process to get the color correct. So with Carmen, we talked before, there's two major colorants. There's cadmium sulfide, which makes yellow glass yellow, excuse me. And there's selenium, and that colorant makes glass pink. If you just add more pink, you get a muddy brown. You do not get red glass by just adding more selenium. So they discovered that if you reheated glass with both cadmium and selenium, then you could bring out a red color. So the formulas for Rubina and Carmen actually have a lot of similarities. The two main colorants are cadmium sulfide and selenium, so Carmen and Rubina share that in common. However, Rubina has about 1/2 the amount of those two colorants. What is different is that Rubina also has cobalt, and a pretty good dose, 3 ounces, which may not seem like for a batch of 1,000 pounds of sand, but it's such a powerful color that actually 3 ounces is quite a bit. And it had no arsenic. And they had arsenic in Carmen, and arsenic tends to counteract the green that comes from iron. So with Rubina, they probably didn't care if a little green came through, so they didn't add the arsenic. So there's 4 colorants in there. Russ Vogelsong, who produced the glass at Summit, Art Glass, said that Carmen comes out of the mold yellow. And when you refire it, you bring out the red. I have no idea what color the glass would have been for Rubina right when it came out of the mold before it was refired, because you've got colorants of yellow, pink, blue, and green. It may have been colorless. And when you put it in either in the glory hole or some other method of reheating, to warm in or to strike is the word, to strike this color. We just don't know. I don't think anyone knows on that one either. Again, I tend to think either Russ or Harold would probably know the answer to that topic off the top of their head. So it was a really tricky process, and it was a blind process. So my guess is the shop workers that made this glass was probably often the same team or same teams for Carmen or for Rubina, because I don't think you'd rotate those teams across other colors, because it was such a tricky business to get this reheating just right. I tend to think it might be a little bit like cooking meat. You take it off the grill, and then you let it rest for a while, and it continues cooking. So again, for this reheating, you couldn't tell what color it was going to end up as it was in the reheating process. When you took it out, you found out after time what the final product would look like. And probably another reason that the reference material said it's a blind process and more of an art than a science. Carmen, when it was the early years Carmen was produced, the formulas had just a tremendous amount of cullet in it, which is reused glass. And I tend to think the early years of Carmen, with sometimes the price was nearly twice as high as the other transparent colors. They had a real problem with uniform color. Larry has picked up some turn cards from the 1950s, and actually the rejection rate was not bad by the 1950s for Carmen. And the biggest reason, the color was too light. Maybe that tangerine that we sometimes talk about, bad Carmen. So I tend to think that with Carmen, with time, they were able to get a more consistent color and less of a rejection. And they really didn't have that practice time with Rubina, because it was such a a short-term color. Now, I'll show you just a couple more examples. I'm going to show all my pieces of Rubina and Carmen and Sunset because I don't have many. This is a colonial, community goblet. Color is probably not one we would consider excellent. There is a touch of blue down here, but it's pretty much red and green. But again, it's a pressed, fairly thick piece of glass. There's not much community in the community line in transparent glass. It's almost entirely crystal or the early opaque colors. Why they happen to make these goblets in Rubina remains a mystery. Another piece is the ram's head bowl. And I think this would be regarded for a heavy press piece as having pretty tremendous color. It's really got a huge, it's actually bluer than what it's showing up on the screen right now, but this whole area down here is blue, and then the green, and then the red. I looked up on my records. I bought this piece in 1994. It's one of my earlier pieces in my collection, and it was 1994 was pre-eBay, so I didn't get it on eBay. I really don't know if I got this out of the Days magazine or which would have been sight unseen. But of course, even eBay, the early years, there was no photos. So when I got this, I thought, wow, that's cool. I like Rubina. I had no idea that it was actually probably a really pretty good representation of the color at that time. So 1994, I've had this for what? 28 years in my collection, and really pleased with it. Then they did make the matching Doric candlesticks to go with the ram's head bowl in Rubina. Now, these aren't out there in droves. I think there's maybe only 3 sets known of these. Of course, you know that there could be 10 sets pop up on eBay next week, but I tend to think that's what we know. These came out of the Charlie Upton collection. I got these from Charlie's collection 5 years ago. And they're really looking dark here on the camera. They look just like Carmen. They're solid red. I'm just not picking up any green, any blue. They look like Carmen. And they look good with the ram's head bowl, of course, even though they don't have the blue and the green in them. But this shows, again, the range of colors. So if you like Carmen, these Doric candlesticks would be up your alley, but they were never made in Carmen, so they have to be Rubina. Then the last thing I have for examples is, this is Sunset. They didn't have a name for these tumblers. I believe almost all the Sunset is tumblers or drinking vessels of some sort. We'll see what others have to show. This one has a tag. Excuse me, this is a 3-ounce tumbler. There wasn't a name for this. There was a number 1955 line. And so these sold for $1.50 each. That's what the the price lists say in October 1956. In plain transparent colors of crystal, pink, pistachio, smoke, moonlight blue, mandarin gold, they were $1. Same exact piece. So they were 50% higher in cost than what the other transparent colors are. They also made the tumblers in different sizes in crackle. So here's one in crackle. That was $1.25. And of course, the crackle glass was an extra process as well, because it was put in cold water to bring out the crackle. So that was an additional process that they had to do in making glass. Cambridge didn't make a lot of crackle glass, and almost all of it, we believe, is from the reopened period. So $1 for plain transparent, $1.25 for crackle transparent, and $1.50 for Sunset. So again, the Sunset is harder to find than those others, I believe. Others may believe differently, but again, it was 50% more expensive, which may have explained why. And even in 1956, $1.50 for something this small would be a lot of money, I think. Remember, candy bars were about 5 or 10 cents. So, there's been a lot of inflation since that time. So if people were willing to pay that kind of price for something that was more labor intensive and tougher to make, would be a good question. So that's what I've got, Julie. Went a little longer than usual. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's always nice to have great information. So I appreciate that, Les, and appreciate what you do for us and researching the items and the colors specifically. So I know that we don't have a lot of people that have items to show tonight, but I think as you were talking about color variation, Mike Strebler has noted that he has 4 vases with color variation. So we're going to start with Mike, and then after Mike, on deck will be the checks.
Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
I do want to say I like your background tonight. That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
All right, so we do have baskets to show. My wife is mostly a 119 basket collector, but she'll collect 117s, 118s, whatever she can come up with. And we bought a Rubina basket for her, and then we saw another one, and we bought that. And then we saw another one, and we bought that. And then we noticed they're all different. So we have a sub collection in the 119 baskets of just Rubina baskets. And I'm going to start with the darkest one first. And I don't know how good this is going to show up. Not very good. That's a little better. I was messing around with the light to see if I could. That didn't help it too much. But this is, it's as Les would say, all red. No, I don't see any green in it anywhere. It's got a big old handle. And then the next one up the evolutionary scale has a little bit of coloring in it. Still has a real dark red handle, dark base, but you can see in the body it's starting to lighten up here. And then as we move into the colors, this one has a lot more color to it. Now it's starting to show up. And the handle's starting to turn blue. And then the final one would be this one, which is really got the color variations to it. And the handle, I would say it's all blue. So one basket, 4 different colors of Rubina. That's what I got, Julie. Actually, that's what Lisa has.
Okay. Thank you so much for that, Mike, because I think it does show that, as Les was describing, that firing process. And so you really see, as you said, very Carmen with a little more look from a tangerine to a yellow to nothing else. Then from, you bring in that green color very nicely, and then the variations in the handle. So I think that's a good representation of how varied we can really see the color in Rubina. So with that, we are going to move on to the checks, and from the checks on deck will be the Cohens.
So I'll bring up our basket, is that they really are all different. And I don't know how well this shows up, but we had bought this online. It was described as a ruby basket. And so when we got it, when we actually received it and we saw the green and the blue at the bottom, it's like we were really excited. And so Rubina is one of our favorite colors. And actually, we had several pieces that we have packed away and had a box marked that we must have moved things out of. So anyway, to make a long story short, we do have a paste mold vase. I can't find it, but we have some other pieces. So this is a sunset tumbler. Let's see if I can show that. This one really doesn't have a lot of blue in it. And I think that's one of the neat things about Rubina is the color variations. And then the sweet pea vase.
Got a lot of blue in it.
Mhm.
This has, yeah, more in the blue in the bottom and then the green. So I'm not sure how well these are showing up, but
Don't break your arm on that.
and then the compote. This was from the honeycomb compote, which was, I think we got this one at the Northeast Ohio show, which we were really hoping would happen again. It's a nice show. This is pretty tall.
You want this one?
Yeah, and then we've got the honeycomb footed bowl here. And this one has a lot of
blue.
in it. You can see. And then the last piece we have is the it's a honeycomb, and I guess this would be a mayonnaise compote. I honestly don't remember if this ladle came with it or if we bought it and thought, I don't know if this is, would be considered Rubina or not. You can see a little bit of yellow in the handle. And
Yeah, Mary,
yeah,
that ladle is the Rubina. They did make those ladles in Rubina. But they normally put them though with the mayonnaise, the number 47 mayonnaise. So, but still, that ladle's a very nice thing to have. You don't see those around very, especially that are in nice shape. A lot of them were cracked.
Right.
yeah. So it was like
So,
it just has a little bit of yellow kind of on the bottom, and it was otherwise it was kind of hard to tell. So
yeah.
So that's what we could find today. So
Well, thank you. It's nice to see all those pieces. And again, some people like more red, some people like more blue. I know my parents have some Rubina and they're very big fans of the blue. So it's all in the eye of the beholder, but as
we're just
Cambridge
excited when
collectors,
we find it, period.
yes, as Cambridge collectors, we like it all. What can I say? All right, so next we're moving to Alan and we'll put Greg on deck, please. Okay, Alan, do we have Alan?
He's on mute.
Okay, let me see if I can get him. Nope, just. Okay,
Okay, sorry.
that's okay.
I thought you were unmuting me, but I'll start over. The Ram's Head Bowl, red at the top with some orange around the rim, fading to a yellow orange to green to a lot of blue in the middle. It's kind of hard to tell in the dark. I have a flashlight, maybe you could see more of the color. But the other day, I was holding it up by the sunset and it really sang with all the colors. The rim around the bowl is red and the entire foot is red as well. Next are dolphin candlesticks. The 109s, red at the top, some yellow and yellow orange in the under the candle holder. The tail and part of the body of the dolphin is blue, fading to green, dark red at the face and eyes, and a lighter red at the base. I don't know if we can see this any better with the flashlight.
Alan, maybe you'd want to share with the group what we discussed the other night about dolphins versus fish, because that shape isn't really a dolphin, is it?
Right.
A dolphin has a snoot on it, and they're actually fish, but the Cambridge company definitely referred to them as dolphins. So.
And so did every other company that made them. Dolphins have smooth bodies, as do porpoises have smooth bodies. This is part of the carp family, I guess. The Japanese in the 70s called them kois, but they're definitely not dolphins.
Actually, Alan, I looked that up also.
Mhm.
There's an example in the 1600s of a sterling silver candlestick. They called it dolphin too.
Did
So
they?
it has a long, long history.
I know in the 19th century, there were glass companies that made it. I didn't know it went back that far in history.
You got to admit, dolphin sounds better than carp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have a lot of dolphins, the 109s and the 50s. I prefer dolphin also. Next is the sweet pea vase. There's a lot of blue in the stem and the base, changing over to green, orange, and a lot of red at the top of the bowl. Next is a mayonnaise. Let me hold this out separate. The honeycomb, red at the top, fading to orange and yellow orange, green with a small band of blue around here, changing back to green and orange and a red base, a large red honeycomb base. With it, I do have a ladle. And the ladle's stem is entirely blue. There's a red rim around the bowl, and it changes to green with blue around it as well. And next is a covered candy honeycomb with a lid. This one, interestingly, has a green finial, some blue at the top under it, which changes almost immediately to red, red-orange, a blue rim, which is strange, at the bottom of the lid. The bowl itself of this half-pound candy is red, a little bit of green and yellow, another band of blue, changing over to green, and then red at the base with, again, blue around the rim of the base. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So it changed colors multiple times. Two more. One is the lemonade, or three more, I guess. Lemonade punch mug, 10 ounce. This has very little red at the top. It's more of a yellow-orange, a blue lip on it. The handle has some red at the top, blue in the middle, green at the bottom of the handle. The body is almost entirely blue until you get down towards what I might call the foot, when it changes to green, orange, red, dark red at the bottom, and the base, once again, is blue, all blue on the foot. Next is Sunset tumbler with a red and yellow stripe or band around at the top of the lip. About 2/3 of it is blue with a yellow-green band after that, red after that, and the base is very, very dark red. That's a 14-ounce tumbler. And then finally, a spiral optic ranch tumbler in Sunset as well. A little bit of red at the top, very, very thin band of yellow under it. 2/3 of the glass is blue in a spiral. That changes to yellow, green, orange, red at the bottom, and dark red at the base with a little bit of blue. That's it. That's it for us.
Oh, well, thank you. Those are lovely. Now, since there's a lemonade glass, there must be a lemonade pitcher. So I don't know, maybe someone else might have that later on, but thank you for sharing those pieces. Those are just lovely. And thank you, Sally, for being the assistant always in the background. You're not getting any credit, but I'm going to give you credit for being the
That's
assistant.
my Vanna White. Thank you.
Yes, she's the Vanna White of glass for the Cohens.
Yeah.
So with that, we are going to move on to Greg. And then after Greg, we'll have Jack, please.
Greg, you're on mute.
Greg, you'll have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, I've got a lemonade glass here, and the only thing I would add is it pretty much follows Alan's description of the colors, pretty much exactly. Maybe they were all somewhat uniform in where the colors were. One thing I did notice, it's got what I would call the larger mark on the bottom, the larger Cambridge mark on the bottom. And I think there was a year that they changed from a larger mark to the smaller one. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing to note about that one.
Greg, actually, those lemonades have a tremendous range of colors. I bought a set of 8 of them. I've resold most of them. Maybe those are the ones we're seeing. And there's just a tremendous range. Some of them have very little blue and some of them have a lot. So just to react to that comment.
Yeah, I was just saying it was sort of red at the top and then blue in the middle and red again at the bottom. Seemed to be a sandwich thing. It's like red and something else, and then red is usually how they go. And also, Cohen's had the mayonnaise. My mayonnaise is a little bit different in that it has, I don't know if it's silver or platinum on the edge. A little ring, a little sort of a double ring around the base, and then a ring, yeah, like 2 rings around the top too.
Greg, I'm going to be getting into that in my portion, but what you have there, that's white gold.
Okay. Okay. So I guess I would not polish that then, or
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Silver polish will ruin it.
okay.
Even though it looks like it may be tarnished, etc., there's nothing you can do about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to know if I assume this one had a matching ladle at one point. I wonder if that had a matching decoration on it.
Is that the 6-inch mayonnaise that you showed?
Across the top.
Yes.
That's how many other ones are there?
That's the only mayonnaise. The rest of them there's an 8-inch one in different sizes, but the 6-inch one is the mayonnaise. That's the one they put the ladle with.
Okay. I would assume this is a 6-inch. Yeah.
It looks a little bigger. That's why I was wondering.
Okay. That's all I got. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Greg. It's nice to see the decoration. And I know now Jack has a very large collection and he'll be sharing more of the decoratives. So Jack, we're going to let you take the stage now.
Okay, I'm going to reclaim host Julie, and then so I can share screen because on mine are going to be pictures. Okay. Okay, share screen. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. First, this is back in September, I did a program on Rubina for Miami Valley. And so I'm taking just some excerpts of that program to kind of give you a little indication of what things Cambridge did with Rubina, both from decoration standpoint and mold treatment standpoint. And so I'm just going to throw in these are some pictures from my collection that kind of exemplify that. Can you see?
It's not big.
Can you blow them up by chance, Jack?
Is it not big?
No.
Ah, that's weird because when I do it, it's large on my screen. Hang on a second. Let me.
Can you click on them individually, Jack?
Well,
Yeah,
I did, and that's what I did to bring it up. Huh. Why it's not showing? I don't understand. I mean, I've done this before. That doesn't make any sense that you're not seeing the whole thing because that's what's being shared.
We see all the small pictures and
Yeah.
icons.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm going to unshare and I'm going to see if I can bring that one up. Okay, so I'm going to reshare. I bet you this will work. Sorry. Yes. Do you see the
Yes.
whole thing now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to go back. And now do you see the picture set?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Now we're good. So the pieces that you've seen tonight so far, you've noticed that there have been some different optics. And this optic here, which people call predominantly the honeycomb optic, and it looks like a honeycomb. It's each little square in there is a six-sided square, just like a honeycomb would be. And you see this on a good many of the Rubina pieces, such as the bowls, comports, some vases too as well. So so this is the nice set with the honeycomb optic, the lemonade pitcher set, or whatever you want to call that. So,
Jack, wouldn't you regard that jug as about one of the finest pieces in Rubina?
that
And
jug,
I had it once and sold it, and I regret it. I've regretted it ever since. That is, don't you think that's pretty spectacular?
I think so. I think so. Especially the jugs are very, it's very difficult to find. Yeah. I might add something. This is just a little twist. Notice I called this an optic. Larry pointed out to me, we were talking one day about this when I was researching this. And this texture, when an optic's done, an optic is actually on the inside of the piece. Like the stem that Les had, that was that nice blown stem. Well, the optic, that narrow optic's actually on the inside. On this piece and on all these honeycomb pieces, that optic, if you want to call it an optic, is actually on the outside. So it's technically really not an optic. It had to be part of the mold. And that was a little something that just caught me by surprise, because I'd always thought of it as an optic, but it actually has to be part of the mold to be on the outside of the piece. So the second little design on this is on this 10-inch vase. And this vase has two optics in it. And it has on the bottom, it has a basket weave optic. And the difference between this is basket weave, it's only on a couple of pieces. And the difference is it doesn't have the six-sided squares. They're all just squares. So whether that was intentional or just by accident, who knows? We don't know. And then it's got a nice vertical optic going up and down on it too as well. And then the third piece here, this is the little 305 base. And this has kind of a typical optic that you see in a lot of the Cambridge pieces. It's on the inside. They put it in an optic mold first and then blew it into the base. You'll see this has a design on it too. This was etched, and this was originally all gold encrusted. And if you can't see it on the screen, but if you look closely on it, there are a lot of still vestiges, specks of gold all through the piece, but it just doesn't show up on the screen at all. One thing that we've learned is that Cambridge had to have had a very difficult time decorating Rubina, as did other companies that bought it and decorated it too as well. Just the nature of the glass itself must have been, because it had the refiring process, did not somehow lend itself to be decorated and work very well. So this is another one of the that has the narrow optic. There you've seen a couple. I think Les had a wine, and I think Alan and Cohen had a piece too. I don't remember which one it was. This is the goblet, and they were all the blown pieces like this you see have a similar color. They're mostly all blue, have some green in them, and the rims were red and into the yellow. It's my conjecture, I know Les was unsure of this, is my conjecture that Rubina was all blue when it came out of the mold. And then the refiring process brought out the red and the green and the other different colors of it. When William Boyd gave his program at Cambridge on Rubina, he talked a lot about that too. So, but that's, like I said, we don't know for sure. This is a nice little 525 3-inch cocktail, or 3-ounce footed cocktail. And it has a nice optic to it as well. This is a panel optic. And And the difference that we call a panel, and actually Cambridge used that term. And it's a very thick line. You see the lines in here are very thick and heavy, and they protrude that way on the inside. And there were a number of pieces that had that. There were some bowls, a punch bowl, and other bowls that had that heavy panel in them. Okay, now I want to get to some decorations and some mold treatments. This is a comport, and Cambridge, for whatever, I guess this was just marketing. They would take the same piece and they would bend the rim in different ways. And you've seen this in other things besides Rubina too as well. But in this case, they bent the rim up. They could also make it flat, and they could also cup it down. This rim also, you notice, and I think Greg Bass, in showing his comport, his had what was called a scalloped edge. And that is actually the term that Cambridge advertised it, a scalloped edge. And they only made that for about 3 or 4 months because in the trade journals, they talk about they were discontinuing now making the scalloped edge in about May of 1925. So it was gone. So when you find pieces with the scalloped edge, it had to be that those were made in a good 4 or 5 month window tops, and they're difficult to find, but they're really neat. It's a nice variation that they do with it. Here is another larger of the comports. I think Mary and Jeff showed this one too. This also came with 3 different types of rims. This is a flat one, and it also came with a cupped up rim and a bent down rim. And this also has the scalloped edge to it. This is the mayonnaise, the 46-inch mayonnaise. Now this decoration was an interesting one that Cambridge tried on Rubina. This is the sponge acid finish. They did this with other pieces other than Rubina. They did it in other colors with, say, on light emerald and mulberry at the time, that were other colors made during the same time period. But to do it on Rubina, to me, to me, it makes it look ugly. I mean, the beautiful Rubina coloration just gets totally muted. It was done on the outside. It's not on the inside, but it's just on the outside. And they must have sponged acid on there, left it on there to eat into the glass a little bit, and then they would rinse it off or whatever that process was to make that on there. So, and this also has a scalloped edge on it too as well. Cambridge did do gold encrusted edges on Rubina. This is this a small? No, this is the large sweet pea vase. And of course, the sweet pea vase is made in 2 sizes. This is the 8 1/4. There's also the 5 1/4 one. And this is etched rose variant number 2, D120 gold band overlay. So Cambridge did etch these. And this is actual gold. They did very little gold on here, on these pieces, because I think they had a lot of trouble. I only know of maybe a few. There's one in the museum also that is a different etch, but it was gold encrusted. They also, you find them cut. Now this is the half-pound candy jar, and I've also seen the one base cut too as well. I don't know if I have that on here now or I don't. Okay. Not sure if Cambridge cut these or not. I believe they did, but I'm not sure. There's no documentation on that. It could be another company bought those and cut them. That's very possible. All the cuttings that I have seen are all the same cutting. So I've not seen a different design on any of the pieces to date. Now there could be some out there. So you can find them cut.
Yes, Mom.
I don't know where you are.
Silver overlay. Now this most likely was not done by Cambridge.
I'm on my phone call, Mom. They're talking about glassware.
Greg, if you could mute, please.
Sorry.
That's all right. So not sure who did this, but it's the beautiful 107 jug and pitcher set with kind of like a quail and leaf thing that on the tumblers and on the pitcher and jug as well. It is silver. It will, you can tell in different areas it has worn off a little bit. I try not to polish it as little as possible to kind of keep that silver intact. But I'm not sure who did that. There's no mark on there as far as who did that, other than it says Sterling on it. But nothing else to indicate who might have put that on there.
Which means it wasn't Cambridge.
Probably not, right? Yeah. And here's another picture of the jug on the backside. And there's another close-up picture of the tumbler showing the bird. So. And I know also there is a vase that I know of existed. In fact, you can see the Sterling that's labeled right there. I don't even see that where my cursor shows, but I also know of a vase that has this exact same design on it. So it does, they did do other pieces like this as well. Okay, covered candy. And this gets to what I call now the Cambridge advertised that in the trade journals that these pieces were available in white and yellow gold. Almost never see it in yellow gold. And it's basically the lines around the base and also around the rim of the bottom of the candy and also the rim of the lid. And it can be a solid on the rim and then an extra line you see right adjacent to it. You can tell the difference between yellow and white gold. I mean, yellow gold is yellow gold. And what people think might be silver or platinum is the white gold. And that's what they predominantly did on these pieces. So. Here's the smaller sweet pea vase, and this has the yellow gold on here. You can see it's gold. It wears off pretty easily. I've only seen a handful of these pieces with the yellow gold on it, and they're just very, very hard to find. But they are out there. The last piece I wanted to show is just kind of, it's one of my favorites in the collection. And that is pewter. Now, Cambridge didn't do it because this was done by a French-Canadian artist in 1941 because he signed it and dated it. So what I think is interesting, okay, if this piece was made, it had to be made in early 1925 because it has a scalloped edge to it. He took it 16 years later, and I looked him up, and he's I could get a little bit of information on him, but not much. But and he decided to take this beautiful piece of glass and put a nice little pewter design on it. So it's always been a close to my heart in our collection to be able to find that. So, and I think that is, I may have, okay. I think somebody showed, yeah, Alan and Sally showed the ranch tumbler. This actually came in more than one size. This is the 16 ounce, and it also came in an 18 ounce. This is a little tougher, but it is out there. I don't know if it actually came in the 14 or not. I would expect that you could find it in there, but I don't know. So 16 ounces is the one that you see more often than the other three. Now, do I have anything else, or is that it? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Very interesting. It's nice to see the decorative pieces because I would expect that, they are very difficult to find and obviously very delicate to take care of as well. So thank you for showing and sharing your collection with us. As always, we thank everyone that participates and everyone that's willing to share their glass with us. So thank you to all of you.
Julie,
So
I
yes.
got a question. I received a question.
Okay.
Can I reply to it?
Yes, you can.
These are the two colors we're talking about tonight, Rubina and Sunset. You can see the similarity between the two. especially in these blown pieces, the colors are really very, very similar. Rubina, about 1925, most of it. Sunset, 1956. So there's 31 years between these two very short-lived colors that were produced by Cambridge. The question was if the formula would have been the same. I'm not aware of a batch book that contains Sunset. It might be out there, but just looking at the blanks of the items that came out, the formulas had to be almost identical. And I'm assuming the production process would have been the same too. Despite the fact there's 31 years between the production, I'm assuming there were notes in the factory the company maintained about how you would make this glass. The fact that, again, this Sunset sold for 50% higher suggests that additional labor, drove up the price, probably, which was also the case for the Rubina. So that's just to answer that question that came into me.
Well, thank you. Are there any other questions by anyone that's on the Zoom and Tell today?
We have something to share.
Oh, excellent.
Okay, so I don't know if you're going to be able to see the color very well. Here is a candlestick. And I don't know if you can see, my sister's trying to help. There's green here, and then this is blue, and this is red on either end. So, and then we have a bowl. And I was gonna, you can't really see the green in this, but there is green at the bottom, kind of. So it really is hard to see the green. There's hardly any blue, maybe a little bit. And then there's one other thing I was going to tell you guys is, and this has nothing to do with Cambridge in some ways. I actually have an Edna Barnes reamer that is the Rubina tribute or whatever that she did. It's very interesting. But I don't have it here, so I couldn't share it, but it does have, the color, thing. So it was kind of interesting. Anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. We appreciate that. And hopefully Dad's able to enjoy the program tonight too. I don't see him, but hopefully he's enjoying it. So are there any other questions or any other pieces to share tonight?
Maybe just a word of caution, Julie, on buying Rubina. Summit Art Glass did make the dolphin candlestick, the one with the square base, in a Rubina-like color. And actually the color is not too bad. And there's many that have gotten suckered into thinking that they were made by Cambridge. So again, with the 1925, that's not when the dolphin had the square base, it had the Stratford base like Alan and Sally showed us. So a lot of us have gotten pretty excited about seeing the dolphin with the square base. But again, that was a reissue by Summit Art Glass.
That is a great point, Les, because I know we all look for different pieces, and sometimes, you have to make a decision right then and there, and you don't have the books to look at. So thank you for letting us know that little tidbit. That's important to us. So with that, I am going to turn it over to David. So David, what do you have for us coming up?
Well, thank you, Julie. And again, thank you for everyone who made this a wonderful evening. I think these monthly meetings on Zoom are just great. And I know in the summer when I'm not having to teach school the next day, it would be even greater. As you know, I announced last month that during the summer months of June, July, and August, we will be having the Zoom and Tell programs continue, but they will be on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. instead of on Thursday evenings. I'm going to run down through those dates. I know in the last Zoom article I wrote for the Crystal Ball, all of those dates will be published. So when you get the June issue of the Crystal Ball, if you need to reference those dates, those will be there. It's on June 14th, that's a Tuesday night, July 19th, and August 16th. And I'll also tell you what the program is going to be on those nights. On June 14th, it's going to be Azurite, Windsor Blue, and Turquoise. That should be a wonderful program. Azurite was decorated back in the 1920s, and then of course Windsor Blue made a splash in the 30s. So there's just so many neat pieces that are probably going to be shown that evening. July 19th, we're going to look at ivory and primrose, two opaque colors that are kind of similar. And in August, on August 16th, we're going to look at the opaque greens. That's going to be jade and Pomona green. Over the summer, the Zoom team is going to get together and kind of see where we go next. We've nearly exhausted all of the Cambridge colors at this point. So we're going to start exploring what other themes we could explore and what we could present to collectors. And so if you have any insight on what you might want to hear about, something you might want to learn about or know more about, feel free to reach out to Les or to Julie or to myself, Jack, Larry, anybody who will listen and get back to us, and we can try to put that into the Zoom schedule. As you know, we have a convention coming up here before too long, and I hope to see everyone, or as many of you that can make it to convention. That would be awesome. I know Mike and Jack and I have been working on the glass show, and we've sold out the showroom. It should be a wonderful glass show for people to come and visit and add a few nice pieces to their collection. So, Julie, that's all I've got this evening. Thank you again for hosting tonight, and I look forward to our next meeting.
All right. Thank you so much, David. And just as a reminder, for those of you that have gotten make sure you get your ballots back in. And also, there was a couple of mailings, so make sure you return those to our Cambridge Post Office box. And again, we look forward to seeing everyone that will be able to attend convention. And for those of you that cannot, we certainly love to see you on Zoom and hope that you'll participate all summer with us. And we'll try to see if we can't take a nice panoramic view of the convention and maybe get some photographs for everyone so we can share maybe on our July meeting for everyone. So kind of during our social hour, maybe we'll post some things for everyone. So with that, I thank everyone for attending. And again, thank you so much for sharing your glass with us each and every month. We appreciate it greatly. And we look forward to seeing you next month. So thank you to all and have a good evening.